XUAN is a very deep and philosophical term. Yeah? And to explain this more is not so easy, because first of all, there are many views on it. And second of all, if you really try to pinpoint it, you can be sure it's not this really. Yeah, this is a bit the difficulty in explaining XUAN really. So I will still try to bring my view on it, but before I have to make clear that it's also really my view, yeah, and that there are many angles to look at this, and many other people will tell you other things, and I think they all have their place, and nothing is, for my opinion, they're wrong in this sense, yeah, just because I see it like this at the moment. So to explain XUAN more in detail, its philosophical background, we have to look a bit at Taoism in general. Yeah? And there are three terms I want to talk about. One is Tao, next is XUAN, and the last one, Wu-wei. And to explain XUAN more, I need to explain also a bit these other terms. So in early ages, Taoism was the art of observation. Yeah? Taoists observed nature and the universe, the cosmos, to understand life more, and through that also their own self more. Yeah? So they used the observation of nature in order to understand themselves better, trying to follow these laws of nature in order to live a more full and healthy life. This is the root of Taoistic philosophy. One first thing they observed in this way was the observation of Tao. Behind everything in life that is existing, there is something that we cannot really define. Something that is bigger than our human understanding. Yeah? Something we all come from and something we all will go into. Yeah? Something that makes all this possible. So Tao stands for the undefinable. Yeah? The thing that stands behind everything, that makes everything possible, the thing we all come from, that we all go into, and the thing that connects all of us together. Yeah? We are all one unit, but through Tao, we are also all one. And we are all also Tao. Yeah? So Tao stands for the undefinable. Yeah, and in their further observation and their wish to come closer to Tao, and through that to our own true self, they tried to understand the virtues and the acting of Tao. How does Tao act? What is the virtue through which Tao is acting? And there comes the term XUAN. Yeah, because they observed that Tao is everywhere, and at the same time it never shows itself. If I can say this is Tao, I can be sure it's not. Yeah? So Tao is acting all the time, but at the same time it never acts for itself. Everything is happening through Tao, but Tao never is doing in the end things by itself. It lets always the things happen through the others. And this hidden way of being of Tao, yeah, comes to this term of XUAN. They observe that if you can say there is a virtue, they say, okay, this virtue is XUAN. Okay? And XUAN is in the end not really a virtue, because the breaking point for virtue is that you take a standpoint. If something is virtuous, if something is good, I take a standpoint, right? If I do something good for maybe my family by feeding my family, I maybe do something at the same time bad for the plant that I feed my family with, or the animal I feed them with. So from the eyes of Tao, there is no good and bad. Like in the Tao Te Ching is stated, just since we know about the beauty of the beautiful, we know about the ugly. Yeah, this is in chapter 2. So this like good and bad in the eyes of Tao is not really existing. Tao loves everything. Tao contains everything. So you cannot really say Tao has a virtue, but this is its virtue. This is XUAN, the virtue of no virtue. Yeah, the virtue that in the end leads us to acceptance. Accepting everything and letting everything go their own course. Taoists observed, okay, how can we come close to this virtue? So they understood this virtue can be cultivated through the practice of Wu-wei. Yeah? And they saw, okay, Tao is acting through Wu-wei, through letting things happen, non-interaction, yeah? Not interference. And here, because Wu-wei also often is translated as not acting, it's not mean to not act anymore and to wait the whole day. Yeah, it is not the practice of Wu-wei, because waiting is also an act in that sense. But it's more about letting go of your inner resistance and starting to observe. This is the first step of Wu-wei, observation. I have to be able to observe, and when I'm able to observe, when I'm able to be quiet, I can actually really see what is happening. When I can see what is happening, I can let things actually really happen. And this is the point where most of us have the first problem, or where it's the first practice, this observation. This is not so easy, yeah? To really observe. And this is a whole art by itself, this letting things happen. A good example for this is, for example, when we practice breathing. In our training we say the breath comes naturally. So this is also why for us in the beginning this breathing methods where we increase the breath and breathe stronger are a contradiction to our practice, because they're not in the sense of Wu-wei. Yeah? Because in the first practice of Wu-wei with our breath, we start to observe our breath, and at the same time we try not to influence our breath. Okay, and this is super difficult, because in the moment we observe, you will figure out with your breath first, you will start to influence it. The first thought will influence our breath and change it. So this is a very interesting first practice, the practice of breathing. Letting the breath happen, observing the breath, and observing how we can more and more let go of the breath. And something very interesting will happen. The more you can let go of actually breathing and letting the breath happen, the deeper you will breathe. The more you will fill yourself with breath and nourish yourself with this breath. Yeah, and this is something very interesting and something that comes back to this concept of Wu-wei. In the moment we're not interfering anymore, things can start really to bloom. Yeah? So Wu-wei is the practice of observation. Observation, letting it happen, and through this seeing how it can start to bloom. So this is Wu-wei in a very, very simple way. Yeah? So we start to practice this with our breathing. Then we bring it into our movement, that we start less and less to use tension. We try in Tai Chi less and less to do things, but let things more happen, following this understanding that we earned in our breathing exercises. And through this we bring it also into life, this concept. Another point of observation is that the better I get in observation, the less I only identify with myself. Because when I observe something and I truly observe the whole situation, I cannot just observe it from my standing point, because then I'm not really observing. Then I'm already in my own movie, in my own limitation. So to practice Wu-wei in that sense means also to take the standpoint that sees more than just yourself, okay? That sees everything in the end. And this is very high philosophical, but it's a way that our practice goes. And we started with the breath, and with this conscious and subconscious understanding, we bring it gradually also more and more into our lives and other practices and so on. So if you want, and the way I define it now, and I have to say again, this definition is already wrong, because you cannot really define Tao, Xuan and Wu-wei really. These are words that have many different aspects. Still yet for the understanding and for a bit giving you a feeling of this term, I do it still. Yeah? So you can say Tao stands for the undefinable. You can say Xuan or Xuande also, the hidden virtue, stands for the virtue of no virtue of Tao, that makes Tao able to act through everything, to do everything at the same time, and at the same time do nothing. Yeah? And this way of acting that is resulting through this virtue is Wu-wei. So when we practice, our goal is, in our practice is, we want to come close to our own Tao. We want to realize Tao within us. So we go the reversed way. We start with the practice of Wu-wei, with our breath, for example. From there we go and cultivate the virtue of hidden. We start to act more and more hidden, taking ourselves out, taking the judging out, taking our defined standpoint more and more, like open it more and more, so we're able more to observe. And from there we have the chance to come closer and closer to our own true self and realize Tao is in us. Yeah, the connectivity of all beings. So this is Xuan and these other terms in a bit more poetic point of view, my point of view. And to give you a last example for Xuan, more simple, I want to give you an example that is very incomplete because it is simple, but also again it gives you a direction, and this is why I still want to bring it now. Yeah. So, what does it mean to act in the hidden virtue? What does it mean in life? Now, a clear example. Yeah. So, for example, in our school here, academy, Xuan Gong Fu Academy, we have many students. Yeah, we live with many students on smallest space, and we have really clear rules. In the kitchen, 12 people need to cook there and eat and so on. So in the kitchen, whenever you eat something, you clean your plate, you put it back. Yeah, so other people can directly use the space and work there again. So sometimes it happens, very rarely, that students forget this. And someone leaves there a bit of dishes, and often this can also create anger for the others because, I want to work there and the space is used, maybe the plate I need now to wash first before I use it. So this is situations that happen here very rarely, but they happen. Like this in this example, but all the other examples. Yeah? So Xuande in this case now, in a very simple way, would mean instead of going after the other one and say, hey, clean your dish fast, is that I just take it and wash it. In a way that no one sees it, no one really notices it, because I don't make a big thing out of it. And in a way that I don't make a big thing in myself out of it. I'm not doing it also because I think, okay, now I'm acting in Xuande and I wash the dish and no one sees me, and for myself I'm really proud now of myself because I'm so great. Yeah, I'm such a hidden warrior. No, I also don't do it with this intention. I just do it for my own practice. I just do it for the sake of doing it, without any wish of recognition in myself or from the world, without any big intention. I see the dish and I just go with it. I take the flow. I have a moment time, very nice, I can wash it. And this is a very simple example for XUAN. Yeah? I do something virtuous without doing something virtuous and without putting myself into the center in front of others, but also not in front of myself. Okay, so far, so good to the principle of XUAN. I hope this was a bit like explaining why I changed the name into XUAN, why I really feel connected to this, why I can say XUAN is for me the guideline on the Kung Fu, on my Kung Fu way, something I really want to practice myself and cultivate myself and also give on to my students. Yeah. With all these big words said now, I also have to say again, I'm also just a beginner in this. Yeah? So I am talking about things that I also barely understood, and I don't take this sign, XUAN, as our sign because I think we have it and we are this, 100%. But it's more like, no, because from heart I wish this for me, for the school, and for our students.